this lesson, we're going to be talking about inclusions. Inclusions are anything that you put into the resin that's not color. So paint and mica, those are not inclusions, but glitter, transparencies, or any kind of charms are inclusions. So I'll be showing you a few inclusions and some techniques for adding them. So remember this from Module 3 when I told you to ignore these last two hearts? Well, now here they are again. Here I'm going to show you how I use inclusions to add dimension to my resin pieces. For this first heart, I'm pouring in clear resin and then I'm going to allow it to cure for a little while. You don't want to put in inclusions that are going to sit on the surface level of the resin until the resin has had a chance to set up a little bit. Once it's had time to do that, it's less thin, it's more viscous, so things will kind of just sit on top. So here I'm going to sprinkle in some glitter, chunky glitters and super fines, and they're just going to sit on the surface there, and that's where they're going to cure. For the next heart, I'm actually going to embed a key, a little metal charm key into the resin. So I pour the resin, I pop those air bubbles, and then I slide the key into the resin and push it down to the bottom. I want to make sure that it's all the way at the bottom of the mold and that I move it around a little bit to let any air bubbles that might be trapped at the bottom to rise. Then I'm going to use my heat gun again to pop any air bubbles. Next, I'm going to take some snowflake glitter and place it on the surface level of the resin. So the key is at the front, in the foreground of the piece, and the glitter is going to be in the background. So here I'm taking a toothpick and I'm just getting the tip a little bit wet with resin and then using it to pick up each individual snowflake and place it where I want to. I'm going for a frozen key kind of vibe for this piece. So I place the snowflakes all around, and then I'm going to use various textures of glitter to add dimension to this piece as well. I'm going to start with the ultra fine white glitter. It kind of has an iridescent effect to it as well. Then I'm going to add a chunky white glitter with that same effect, and then lastly a standard size glitter in the same color. Now I'm going to let these two pieces cure overnight and I'll show you what I do next. Okay, so these pieces have had a chance to cure overnight and it's time to pop them out of the molds. So you can see how shimmery and shiny and sparkly this glitter is in the background of that clear resin. Now with the key heart, you can see that the key is in the foreground, the glitter is in the background, and it all adds depth to the piece. All right, now I've zoomed in really tight because I want to show you how I'm going to transform these pieces even further. I'm going to flip each piece over so that the back side is facing upwards. And I'm going to mix up two colors of resin here with mica. One is a pearly white mica and the other one is a purpley red kind of color. So now that I have these pieces with the backside facing up, I'm going to back them with resin. This is going to add even more dimension to each of the pieces. So using surface tension, I'm filling the backside with resin. And you can kind of see that there's a lip around the edge of each of the hearts because when it's poured into the mold, it kind of naturally goes up the sides. And as it cures, it creates a kind of a cup effect. We're going to fill that cup area with resin and fill it to the point that it's full and the surface tension holds. Also, this is the doming mat I was telling you about. You can see how it's kind of spiky looking, and that really helps with not letting the resin pool underneath a piece just in case it drops off to the side. Now, if any resin were to fall over the edge, I would pick this piece up and using a alcohol-soaked piece of paper towel, I would wipe the front and the side really well so that I don't have cured resin on the front of my piece. But just be really careful so that you don't have drips sliding over the edge. Keeping that surface tension tight will prevent any of that from happening. You can see that the backing has cured, and as I flip it over, you can really see how the detailing and inclusions are popping out even more because of the background color. Adding layers into your pieces like this really add in dimension and can make your pieces more dynamic. When I was showing you the alcohol ink drop technique in the last module, I also showed you a little bit about including transparencies into your resin piece. Now, with this video, I want to show you a little bit more in depth when it comes to transparencies. You can get printable transparencies at office supply stores and also on Amazon. Just make sure that you're buying the right type of transparency sheet for your printer. I'm using a laser printer, and I've found that laser printers are less likely to smudge when I make transparencies, and so when I'm making huge batches of Christmas ornaments, I always use my laser printer and laser printer compatible transparencies. So here I'm making name hearts or statement hearts, and I've printed out some names, and really, you can just make this in Microsoft Word, you can make this on PicMonkey, you can make it on Canva, and you just need a blank document and type in the name and then print it out to the right size. That's all it takes. Now that I've printed it out and I've cut it out to the right size, I'm going to paint the background just like I did with the mountainscape in the last module. I'm just using white acrylic paint. I prefer the matte type. And I'm going to flip the transparency over onto its front. Then I'm going to take a toothpick and use it to paint the back of this transparency. I found that using a paintbrush on such a small transparency piece isn't as effective, but using a toothpick is great for getting the fine detailing work in. Now that it's dry, I'm going to add my transparency. Now we're going to let this cure overnight. What I chose to do to back this piece is a little easier than the previous method I showed you. Instead of putting it on the doming mat, then backing it with the resin and a popsicle stick and keeping the surface tension up, wait for the resin to completely cure, then mix up a new batch of resin, use whatever color and glitter that you're going to use in it, and then pour it over the first layer. Don't take the first layer out of the mold, just pour it over the first layer. Fill it all the way to the brim of the mold and let it cure overnight again. All right, now it's time to pop it out of the mold. You can see that because the mold itself was shiny, the heart comes out shiny as well. That first layer is nice and clear, the name is bold, and it pops because of the white and black contrast on the teal background. You can also see that there's some sparkle going on in the teal background layer because there's glitter mixed into that layer as well. One of my favorite things to do with transparencies and resin is make ornaments at Christmas time. And so it's super easy. You just type up whatever it is you want to show on your ornament, or it can be a picture, it can be a design, and then print it out on the transparency, making sure that it's going to fit inside of your mold. And you're going to do the same thing that I just did with the statement heart. You pour a layer of resin, then you slide your transparency in at an angle face down, allow that layer to cure, and then back it either on a doming mat or within the mold with a contrasting color. Finishing these ornaments is super simple too. I use my Dremel drill. I put on a small drill bit and I just drill a hole right through the top. Then I feed ribbon through and tie it off. And that's it. A quick and easy ornament, and you can make big batches of these at a time for family or for friends, or you can make them for craft shows or your online store. The possibilities are really endless.